Hi, it's David and Felicia from Life with Parkinson's. Welcome back to part 2 of 3 of our ongoing interview with Felicia. Today we're going to talk about how she saw everything through her eyes leading up to my Parkinson's diagnosis.
Mm-hmm. So the first thing that always stands out about the Parkinson's diagnosis is when you showed me A Walk to Remember.
The movie.
The Nicholas Sparks movie with Mandy Moore. Great movie. I cry every time. I don't remember how old I was when you showed it to me, but I remember this, because she has leukemia. Spoilers. Mandy Moore has leukemia in the movie. And then, I don't remember the guy's name who plays the boy. But he still loves her in spite of her leukemia, and they get married and everything. Oh, it's so cute. It's one of my favorite movies.
It's a great movie. I love it.
I cry every time I watch it. But then Dad was like, "Oh, we're gonna watch a movie together tonight. Here's a movie that I love. You're gonna love it." And I was just bawling at the end.
You were.
I could not stop crying. And this was before Dad got Parkinson's, and Dad was like, "Why are you crying? It's fine. It's okay. It's fine." And I was like, "No, you don't understand. She's got leukemia and he loves her anyways, and it's unconditional." And I could not stop crying. And then after you got diagnosed, we watched it again, and you couldn't stop crying.
I couldn't stop crying.
Because it's a fear of mine that I've had since I was little after I got diagnosed is oh, no one's going to love me, and no one's going to want to marry me since I have this illness because it's too much to handle. But seeing this really cute love story, where the guy, loves the girl despite of her illness, and then after you got diagnosed and kind of felt that, we're oh, Mom still loves you despite of your illness, and
thank God for that.
And supports you in all these really great ways and everything. You kind of saw that through the eyes that I was seeing that through, really great unconditional love. So I always think about that whenever I think of your Parkinson's diagnosis and how funny that is, and how you can relate to that now, which is a way you couldn't relate to me before.
No, definitely getting Parkinson's helped me understand your situation a lot more.
Yeah.
And right now, in the first video, I was low and I was off. Now in this video, I'm on, and I got some dyskinesia just because I'm so darn excited about this.
I've been talking about this for months.
We finally got to get together and do this, and I'm just having so much fun.
Yeah, it's been good.
So now I've got the wiggles.
Yeah, the wiggles, like the TV show.
Yeah, the wiggles.
Anyways, so getting into your Parkinson's diagnosis, I was 17 when you got diagnosed, I think.
Yeah, in May of 2017.
Yeah, so I was 17. I was turning 18 because I was moving out summer to go live with my grandparents while I did hair school. So you're 17. You weren't 17. I was 17.
You were 17, but it was May of 2017.
It was May of 2017. And I remember leading up to it, you had really tense shoulders. Your left side was quite tense, but it had always been like that.
Yeah.
So it wasn't a huge deal. It's oh, Dad's got tense shoulders. He's gonna go to a massage. And when you came back from a massage, you're I feel amazing. Look at me be able to move so
That's pretty accurate.
And you would spin around and everything. It was really funny. But yeah, you just always had tense shoulders. I don't really remember your emotional stage going off too much. I remember there was little outbursts here and there where Mom and Dad would go shut their bedroom door and you'd be oh no, they're having an argument, even though it wasn't an argument. It was a discussion.
Yeah. And
then they come out being fine. So I remember stuff like that, but that wasn't a big deal to me or Zach. I remember the day though that you got diagnosed, because you and Mom had gone to the neurologist and the doctors and everything, and Zach and I didn't know about that. So we weren't a part of that, but I had come back from babysitting, and I remember it was really funny. Zach had just had ankle surgery. Why do we always have surgeries whenever someone gets diagnosed? It's a common thing. I know it's weird. It's not common. It's weird. It's happened twice.
Yeah.
So I remember that.
Well, the neurologist had come down to Squamish on a Sunday.
Right. Yeah.
So we'd gone to church.
Yeah.
And then after church, I had gone to see my neurologist.
Yeah, and you guys were we're gonna go look at cars. That's their date night. They go look at cars. It's weird. Because they'd leave for date night with the car and then show up with a different car. It's happened 3 times. It's oh, we got a new car. Cool. So Zach was they've gone to look at cars or something. He was playing FIFA, and I was all right, whatever. And then you guys had, like, come back, and then, like, I remember you looked really shell-shocked.
Yeah.
Mom was like, we have to tell you guys something. And we're like, oh, great. Because, like, that's never a good sign. So, like, I remember you had sat down, Zach had paused his game, and, like, you were like, so we've seen the doctor. And, like, I thought, like, it was something with Mom, because, like, Mom was the one who was always sick because of her endometriosis. I remember, like, she's probably going for another surgery or something. Like, that's not a big deal. Whatever. And then I remember you were like, so we've been to the neurologist. This is what the neurologist said, and, like, I have Parkinson's. And I remember I burst into tears because I had watched Grey's Anatomy. They're not accurate. But I was like, oh, Parkinson's is bad. Like, I didn't know, like, 100% about it, but I remember it being bad. And Zach was like, what the heck is Parkinson's? And I think I said something along the lines of, like, Dad's dying! Probably. Like, it was just, like, instant. But I was just, like, you know, I knew Parkinson's was bad. And I knew it was bad because of, like, how shell-shocked you looked. And, like, Mom was like, everything's going to be fine. We're going to get through this. And then, like, yeah, you were like, you know, we've gone to see your neurologist. Like, this is, like, what they said. We don't have a ton of things. And I remember Zach and I were like, when did you go see a neurologist? Like, when did you go see a doctor?
Well, I probably didn't mention much because I had blanked the whole thing out.
Yeah.
I'd been going to see our family doctor for warts on my feet for like week after week after week after week. And then he finally looks at me and says, are you okay? Is your shoulder tight? He kind of wiggled my arm around. He's like, I'm going to send you to see a neurologist.
Yeah.
And I'm like, what? I'm fine. And Mom was like, that's a good idea.
Yeah, because we were planning to move to Alberta for you to go to seminary school.
Yeah.
And I remember, like, you were saying, like, when you first got diagnosed, you were like, I thought I was fine. I'm going to Alberta. We're going to go to seminary school and everything, and I'm great.
Yeah.
And then you got Parkinson's.
Yeah, it was a weird moment.
It was weird. Yeah, and then I don't remember the rest of the day. To be honest, I just remember crying. I remember Mom being like, this is going to be fine. I remember Zach didn't really have a reaction because he had just had ankle surgery like a week before or something. He was really hopped up on that.
Well, one thing I can think of is, remember when you and Mom and I went down to like Langley to go look at apartments?
Oh, that was such an awkward drive. Oh, I couldn't wait to get home. Like, we had gone to, like, apartments in Langley, because we were thinking about moving to Langley.
Yeah.
And we had found this great apartment, and it looked great, and we were driving home. I didn't want to move. I'm just going to say this. I didn't want to move. I was like, but I guess it's good for Mom and Dad. I'll move with them. You know, the sacrifices you make.
Yeah.
And I remember we were driving home. It was such an awkward drive home. And you guys were talking, and you guys were like, let's buy it. Let's buy the apartment. And Mom had just just pressed, like, the call button. And then, like, she turned it off, and she went, we can't buy the apartment.
Yeah.
We can't do it. And you went, what? And I was like, headphones on. The road looks so pretty. And then, like, this awkward hour ride home. You got home, you guys instantly went to your bedroom, and Zach's like, what's going on? And I was like, don't talk about it. Like, awkward. But yeah, I remember that because I was like, yeah, apartment looks fine, like whatever. And then Mom was like, no, we can't move. I just have a bad feeling. It's not a good idea. And you're like, no, this is a great idea. But it's the impulsivity or whatever it's called.
It's
impulsiveness.
It's Parkinson's.
Yeah.
Like it's when your medication's I always say low when it's off.
Yeah.
You can't think straight.
No. Thankfully, Mom was there. Yeah. Could you imagine living in Langley with you having Parkinson's? That'd be terrible.
Well, the thing was, our family doctor said, don't move.
Yeah, he did. I didn't know that.
He told Mom a few times, don't move. Because she's obviously gone in on her own.
Gone on her own. We went to the doctors a lot. We had like family 4 visits. All of us went.
I swear there's a tennis court at that doctor's house named after us.
Yeah. This is the Gephardt tennis court. This is the Gephardt pool.
Yeah.
This is my Gephardt bar. Yeah, and then, so you got diagnosed. I called a friend I think you guys left to do something. I don't remember. I was alone, and I called a friend to talk, and I cried on the phone, because I was like, this sucks. Why is this happening to us? Like, this doesn't seem fair. I was like, 3 illnesses now.
Yeah.
Are we cursed?
Yeah.
And then after that, like, as the teens say, everything was kind of Gucci, which means good, apparently. Like, everything was fine. Like, I remember, like, it affected me a little bit, but it was kind of like, well, We just have to, it was the same thing with the diabetes. We just have to deal with this. We're just going to deal with this. And I remember we had a lot of conversations about like what the future would look like, the progression. But I moved out like 4 months later.
Yeah, that's true.
So it's not like there was like, the 4 months weren't fun. Like you went to work the next day. Which Mom was like, do you really think you should go to work? And you're like, I'm fine. I can go to work. And all of us were like, I don't think you should go to work. And then you went to work, and you came back like an hour later because your boss sent you home.
Well, yeah, and then I just broke down and cried for like 8 hours in the bedroom.
Yeah, because all of us are like, don't go to work. You shouldn't go to work. You're like, I gotta go to work.
Yeah.
I remember that because I remember, like, I walked back in. I think I was doing a nannying job or something. Like, I walked back in, I was like, what are you doing home? And you're like, I got Parkinson's. So I was like, yeah, why did you go to work? Like, I remember that. And then I remember I went to doctor's appointments several times to learn about it and the pills and everything. I remember you did a memory game, and the guy's like, memory time.
Yeah, thank goodness for that.
Yeah, because you're like, name these animals like that you can hunt, and Tad's the hunter. Which was like, so you listed off all these things, and they were like, yeah, you're fine. I remember that. I remember I didn't like for a while before you started doing the physio and everything, like you had a hand movement that went like this a lot. I didn't like that. Yeah. I remember I didn't like that because I went with a job with you for the rush door company. I went to Gibson's, and I remember the guy was looking at really weirdly. I remember I glared at him the whole entire time.
Thank you.
You're welcome. I shouldn't have done that. And then but the biggest thing is the anxiety. That was the hardest to deal with. Yeah. That was probably the thing that affected me the most. This hand movement didn't love, but the shakiness and everything hasn't really bothered me. But it's been the anxiety that was really hard because like we did so much in crowds together. Like you know, we used to do piano duets together. We had to stop doing that because of the Parkinson's. I remember that day really, really sucked when we couldn't do that anymore. That one was a really hard one to take. We used to go to the movies together, see movies. Couldn't do that anymore because you couldn't sit still. And anxiety, not being able to go to church together was a really, really big loss. That really sucked. I mean, there's also nothing you can really do about it. It's just the anxiety.
Yeah, well, you get the anxiety from the Parkinson's, and then you get the anxiety from the meds.
Which is like a double-edged sword.
And then you get anxiety when you go off, and then you get more when you come back on.
Yeah, like the anxiety is probably the biggest thing that I'm still learning to deal with. But I mean, I also have anxiety, so it's also like, we'll just go sit outside restaurants together because we're both anxious. Like, I remember that we went to like a pub one time. And I remember we were watching Battlestar Galactica, and you were really anxious, and I was really anxious. And I was like, I'm going to go outside because I'm anxious. And you're like, I'll come with you. So we just went outside and talked about Battlestar Galactica the whole time. Like some smokers. Well, the smokers go outside. And it's like, no, we don't smoke, we just have anxiety. I don't know if you can put that in the video.
Yeah, we can. That's no problem.
But yeah, like there's been like some losses from the Parkinson's that have been really difficult. Like the piano duets, I miss doing that a lot.
Yeah, I do too.
But now we sing together, which is really fun.
Yeah, I like.
Like going to the movies, I kind of miss. But now movies are like $12 a ticket, so I don't really miss it anymore. Yeah. Because I can't afford it.
Don't miss it that much.
No, and like the restaurants, and then there was COVID, so we don't really go to restaurants anymore. So it's like there's like things that like. Yeah, like get taken away with the Parkinson's that you really miss. But I also think like in a really weird way, I think the Parkinson's came at a really good time because I was moving out. And it's like, well, I'm going to lose all that stuff anyways. Yeah. Because I'm moving out. So I think in a weird way, like, yeah, it sucks. But I think like it was also like I was growing up anyways. Yeah. Like it would have been different if I was like, 8 and Dad got Parkinson's, and it's like, well, like there's a whole childhood missing from that.
Oh yeah, thought of that.
So at least when I'm older, that you got diagnosed, it's like, well, I was gonna lose those things anyways because I was growing up. It just maybe had come a year earlier. So in that way, like I think it's kind of good and bad. Yeah. And it's like, well, we do a bunch of other different stuff together now, anyways, like the singing and like the books that we read together. I read a book and then Dad gives me the book, or I give Dad the book and Dad reads the book and then I read the book. Like, so it's like we still have that because we used to read it together all the time growing up. So like that thing has just evolved and changed as I've gotten older anyways. Yeah. And I don't really like leaving the house anyways either. So it's kind of like we don't go out to restaurants or to the mall. I live in a small town. We don't have a mall. So it's like, yeah. like we do Bible studies together on Zoom, and that's really good. So yeah, I think like I said, I think the biggest thing was probably the anxiety was the hardest. And then like the progressions between the visits are really hard too, like, but also like this visit has literally been the easiest because like the red light has been so amazing, and like you're finding all these like really other great things that help. So like you look better than the last time I saw you.
Thank you.
Which is great, yeah.
Yeah. I know just for fun that we used to tell people that we lived at 911 Rum and Egg Drive.
We still do.
Yeah.
We just live somewhere else now. But it's still 911.
Yeah.
Gimpy Gebhardt's household.
Yeah, that's what our family doctor told us.
Yeah.
But what about any other thoughts or memories for when, just around the Parkinson's diagnosis time, or anything that like you remember that affected you?
I remember one of the first conversations we had after you were diagnosed. That was probably one of the hardest conversations we've had to have. We've had many hard conversations.
Yeah.
It's just part of our household. But I remember, I think it was when I was getting my N for my driver's license. You had taken me.
It was so much fun.
You were so excited when I started driving. It was great. I didn't like it, but you loved it. But yeah, I think we went driving to practice my driving.
Oh, I remember this.
Yeah, and like we were driving around and we were talking about Parkinson's, as we do after early diagnoses of illnesses. And you were just like, are you angry? Are you upset or anything?
Yeah.
And I was like, I'm fine.
Yeah.
I was not fine. But I was like, I'm fine. This is fine. We're all going to be fine and everything. And like, you just started like opening up about like your fears with Parkinson's, and like, because like I had learned enough about Parkinson's by that point to be like, this is a really crappy disease.
Yeah.
Like, this is not a fun disease. And in my brain, I was like, oh, this is only a disease like 80-year-olds get. Yeah. Like, Dad's 40. You were like 43? Yeah, you were 43 when you got diagnosed. So I was like, Dad's young. It's going to be fine. Everything's going to be fine. But then, like, they were like, oh, Parkinson's can progress really quickly sometimes. You got to be careful of that. And then, like, in my brain, I was like, well, I can't watch my dad die. Like, I can't watch him go into a wheelchair. Like, that's terrifying. I don't want to do that. And then, like, but I didn't want to talk about it because I didn't want to make you feel guilty. Yeah. But then you started opening up about your fears of being like, well, what if I do progress too quickly? Who's going to take care of my 3? Like, Dad's biggest concern was, like, he was the one that, we were one income family. We didn't have a ton of money. Like, he was the one that went through, like, newspapers when he had pneumonia, and, like, went to odd jobs and was, like, the main provider of the household and everything, and, like, did income tax returns and everything. Like, it was just like, Dad's the stable one of the household. We are all stable. Dad's stable. But then suddenly you weren't stable. Like, you weren't okay anymore, and that was really scary for me. So then when you started opening up about like, well, I'm worried about who's going to take care of you guys when I get older and am in a wheelchair and I can't provide for you. Like, who's going to do that? And then I remember just, like, breaking down in tears. And then we pulled over on the side of the road, and then we were both crying on the side of the road. It's one of our so common things in our household. It's not family if someone's not crying. Yeah, it's not family time unless we're crying. Yeah, exactly. So we're both crying on the side of the road. And then I just remember I kept saying, well, Dad, like, we're going to take care of each other. Like, we're going to be fine. Like, everything's going to be fine. But, like, here's all my fears and everything of, like, I can't watch you die. I can't watch you go into a wheelchair. Like, that's awful. I don't want to do that. But, like you just have to. Like, you just have to take care of each other. Because, like, I don't know, like, your mom took care of me for, like, 17 years. Like, over 15 years now with my diabetes. Like, I'm 23 and you're still taking care of me when I'm crying on the side of the road and I can't afford my strips. Which are just, like, my glucose strips that take my blood so I can test my blood sugar. Like, that's still a thing. Like, so yeah, I think for me that was one of the, like, biggest breakthroughs, like, the Parkinson's, of being like, yeah, this is, like, super crappy. It's not super fun, but, like, we're all still doing it together, which I think is cool. Yeah,
thank you, Felicia. That's very heartwarming and heart-touching. Just reaching in there.
Pulling the heartstrings.
I don't want to cry again.
No. It's not family if someone's not crying.
Yeah. No, that's really good. Okay, well, I think we'll end it there. And yeah, thank you everyone for continuing to watch and support this channel, and for following this interview, we're going to come back in a little while. Maybe we'll have a drink, a sandwich, take a little break, and we're going to come back with part 3, just basically talk about how things have started the diagnosis day and just move forward, how things have progressed over the years, what you've thought, what your thoughts and things that you've noticed, and we'll see you in a little bit. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Oh, let's take this journey together.